Roxie Nafousi, the queen of manifesting. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for being here. We just did a talk with the team. How did that go? How did you enjoy meeting the team and speaking with them?
Yeah, it was so good. I absolutely loved it. No, thank you so much for having me. And they all seemed really receptive and open to it, and it's nice, especially with people that, you know, maybe haven't heard much about manifesting before, and to see their openness is always really nice.
Mm-hmm. So Roxie, today I want to go all the way back. Let's understand who Roxie is. Where did you where did it all start from for you? Not the manifestation journey, but your life. Tell us about younger Roxie growing up. Where was it? Tell me all about it.
So I was born in Saudi. I have two Iraqi parents and moved to the UK when I was like 6 months old and grew up in Oxford. And my real name is actually Rowan. But growing up in Oxford, around the time of 9/11 was tough as an Iraqi. Islamophobia was a real thing, and I was definitely, there was a lot of bullying, a lot of casual racism, and not so casual racism. And I started to become very aware of feeling different to others culturally and rejecting myself. So to the point when I had to move schools at 12, I changed my name from Rowan to Roxie, because I didn't want people to associate me with being Arab. And that was really where it began, this kind of rejection of myself. And then when I came to London for university, straight after I left school, I discovered drugs. And that for me became this real escape. And that kind of really colored my whole life for the next 10 years until I discovered manifestation. So
that was sort of from university, starting like 18, 19 for the next decade. That was your life. Yeah,
from 18. I mean, I had one job, which was at Diageo when I was straight out of uni. It was my first and only proper job. And that was great, but I didn't stay long because I was just too busy partying. I couldn't focus. I wasn't motivated, nothing. So until, I think I was 27, just about to turn 28. That's when I kind of had hit my rock bottom and then decided to make a change.
So your parents, were they still living in the UK?
They're in Dubai now. So they moved when I was 17. And, my dad is he's a businessman. He's very serious, he's been teaching me about quantum physics probably since I was about 5 years old. So I'm sure he had a big impact on me. And my mom's a biochemist, and I come from a family of doctors. So, I mean, I always say my dad's very fickle. I was not his favorite, to say the least, when I was busy, having a party. But now I'm successful. I'm absolutely the favorite.
So I think what I can see from that is that, it's really come from a young age. Your parents have pushed you, deep down, you've got that desire to push forward, which comes from in a lot of immigrant communities. When immigrants, they move over, they've come for a better life, and they're pushing their children forward from a young age. They're embedding that within them, that you have to strive, you have to achieve. Did you feel like, was it like that for you growing up? Do you think you grew up with that inside you? Did your parents embed that in you, that you knew, I've got to do something? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, my dad was very hard on us, especially with our grades. An A was not good enough. It had to be an A+. I think it's very typical of immigrant families, that real push and the requirement to be smart and diligent and motivated and to work hard. And there was we were not spoiled in any way. And he was very much a, look after the pennies, the pounds will look after themselves kind of man, and he drilled that into us. And at the time I didn't appreciate it. I actually really didn't. I didn't get along with him. I didn't like him particularly. I found him cold. And but now I see that so much of the way that I run my business is thanks to him.
You've benefited from all of that. That's how you realize, you're looking at it now thinking, that was all very beneficial. I think one thing I'd like to just bring into this conversation, which is a lot of people don't realize, I've got 2 Iraqi family members. So one of my cousins, he married an Iraqi girl, and then one of my female cousins married a guy from Iraq, and I've learned so much from them about how rich the Iraqi culture is.
Yeah.
You know, it's really, I think, you know, it's thousands of years old of history and science and some really intelligent people in the Arab world come from Iraq, and a big sense of pride. So I guess you were, you know, when you're telling me your parents were, you know, physicists, and I'm like, you know, yes, Iraqi people, there's so much depth to that country that people often forget about.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm very, very proud to be Iraqi.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be proud of it, because for a long time I think I wasn't, because I felt so different. And it took a few years for me to actually say, oh my God, like I can't believe I rejected my culture. And now I'm completely the opposite now.
So when you talk about growing up, you said you faced racism. I faced it as well. I grew up in the north. You know, once I was out for a night out, and this is things that, as somebody who's not an ethnic, they don't even think about these things. Living in a foreign country, or you know, but it's not foreign. We're born here. But living in a different country, and I was out for a night out once at 17 years old, and you know, a couple of girls from the other side of the street start screaming, "Where's your backpack, you bomber?" and all this kind of stuff. You know, post 2001. Did you encounter things like that yourself? Did you encounter direct racism in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I was once locked in a phone box and called Saddam, and it was there for 2 hours. My mum had to find me. It was, you know, I think quite a traumatic experience. It was, you know, and called various disgusting names by people at school. It was, especially, you know, my mum would wear a headscarf, and, you know, I was judged for that, and that was really painful. And so eventually I would be so embarrassed when she would drop me. You know, I'd try and run ahead, and it's horrible, I think, especially there was just nobody else. Everybody else was white and very English, and things like we didn't celebrate Christmas. You know, I felt embarrassed of that, or we ate very different food, or, you know, all of those things. And you start to not fit in anywhere. You don't feel like you really fit in at home because you're westernized, and you don't fit in with your peers because you're so different to them and they can't understand your culture.
I completely understand all of that. Everything you say, I can relate to all of that, where you're kind of pretending to be someone else outside your home, and then you get lost somewhere in between. You're not the person who you're pretending to be outside, and you're going at home, but you're resenting the people at home because you're the cause of being different. It's a very, very weird dynamic to be in, and only people who've been through that can understand what that struggle is all about.
Totally.
So coming through all of that, you know, why I wanted to go into this is it really gives people perspective. I'm sure there's so much fun, you know, great content about you out there. There's a book, but I really wanted to go deep into for people to understand what you've come through to then overcome it. You know, so it's thank you for being honest, and thank you for sharing these things.
Thank you.
So now, I've got a picture of this journey. You know, it's growing up. We've got the racism. We've got the personal dilemma of who you are, Western, Eastern, and then the drugs and the partying, and I can relate to that part as well. So what you talk about this rock bottom? I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to that, and they probably feel that they are at rock bottom or reaching rock bottom. What was rock bottom for you? What was that? Was there a moment? What was rock bottom where you said, was there a point you said, enough is enough, I'm going to change now?
Well, I think anybody that has an experience with addiction will know that there are usually many rock bottoms along the way, because there were many moments where I felt this is the lowest I can get, and I'm going to change, and I'm going to give up, and I'm going to change, and then you don't. So there was a long journey of that. But the kind of last one was in May 2018, and what had happened was I'd gone on a yoga teacher training course, because in one of my I'm going to give up and change my life moments, I had decided to book myself onto a yoga teacher training course, and I thought, well, I can make a career for myself teaching yoga, and I can, you know, change my life, and I'll be away from any access devices, and it's a month in Thailand. And what happened was I went there full of kind of real determination. I really thought that would be it. And then I got back to London, and within 24 hours, I was back taking drugs and essentially went on a 48-hour bender. And then after that, I was like, oh no, nothing is going to work. What will I do? So that was a low point, yeah.
What drugs were these? Just for
Cocaine was for
Mainly?
me. It was, I didn't really even care about drinking, and I only drank so that I could take drugs. I was never didn't care about drinking as such, but cocaine gave me this false sense of confidence that I'd never had, and that was what was so addictive.
It's a nasty drug.
Yeah, it is.
The other side of it is
It's horrible.
unpleasant.
Yeah, and then you're constantly on come downs, and
Yeah.
it's a really hard thing. And even now, if I watch people on TV taking drugs, I get such bad anxiety.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you for, coming out of that and being
you.
an inspiration to so many people around the world. So
Thank
now
you.
from all of this, it's all turned around.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful and amazing journey you're now on. How does it feel? I mean, this was only, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
No, 5 years
Yeah.
ago. So you had this moment, and then what came next? Where did the new Roxie V2?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Well, it wasn't totally straightforward. So what happened was that I met a man named Wade messaged me on this dating app, and on our first day I was like, I have manifested you. This is incredible. But 3 months later I was pregnant, and I was pregnant with somebody that essentially I didn't know. I had no money, he had no money, and I saw, well, this was not what I was manifesting. And I suddenly had to give up all my addictions. And so what happened was sort of 28 years of pain came rushing back. And so in that pregnancy, I probably reached, without doubt, that pregnancy, that 10 months was the hardest time of my entire life. It was a depression that I couldn't even describe. I really found it hard to be alive in that time. And I stopped leaving the house. I was binge eating. I gained 30 kilos. I was in such a bad way. But what I did do was I immersed myself in self-development. I really started learning and reading and listening to podcasts and trying to find out everything I could. And I made a decision, a very strong decision, that when I had this baby, I was going to make my life the best that it could be. And I knew that I wanted to use all the pain that I'd been through and all my experiences to help others.
So really went from bad to worse.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, I quit drugs and it was rainbows. It went from there, it actually went worse.
Yeah.
Until you made that spring back.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was then when Wolfie was 5 months old that I hosted my first ever workshop.
But just coming back now, so unplanned pregnancy.
Yeah.
You were still taking drugs.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you find out you're pregnant. So now all of a sudden you've got to quit.
Yeah, and I was smoking 25 a day.
Yeah.
I mean, everything had to be given up.
Cold turkey, you've got to stop everything.
Yeah, it was really hard, and it was really difficult, and it was just such an immense sadness. It was so... I definitely think that it was one of the most traumatic times of my life, and it's why I would now probably never put myself through pregnancy again, because I'm too terrified. But it was absolutely worth it. Through the hardest time of my life, I had the greatest reward, which was obviously my son.
I remember now reading about this, that at the time when you were pregnant, you moved into an apartment somewhere in Waterloo, and it was an old apartment. Was it your parents' old apartment?
Yeah, it was my parents' old apartment that he'd bought, my dad had bought 30 years ago, and obviously never touched, and it was just being rented out to students. And I walked in, and the smell was just so horrendous, and it was the mold on the walls, and it was just absolutely foul. And I had nothing, and I was like, I just don't know what I'm going to do, but I knew that kind of pain was such a driver for me to create success for myself.
So there's two things that's coming to my mind from this. First point is that, and we'll come back to this one, using pain as a springboard. I really want to talk about that, because I find that a lot of successful people that I meet, entrepreneurs, professionals, including myself, it's really deep inflicting insecurities that drive us to do things that actually we're putting ourselves through abnormal levels of pain to counter our past pain, if that makes sense. We've got those traumas inside, those insecurities that we then try and overcompensate to come out of. But we'll come back to that point. What I want to talk about just now is that then you said you hated this place you were in Waterloo, right? This your parents' apartment, and it was hell. But you changed that, and you created a space that you loved out of that.
Yeah.
Tell me about that part, because you know there's a thing that I've learned about recently, which is that you through your mind you can create heaven out of hell or hell out of heaven. It's in your mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will feel stuck. That I'm somewhere where I just hate where I am and it's not worth it anymore. How did you take that situation and without actually changing the situation so much, feel good in that space, that mind space, that physical space? How did you do that?
Well, I don't know if this is that inspirational, but I just did some car boot sales. Basically, I was like, well, I have to find a way, and I had stuff. It was so small and I had too much stuff. So I went to Battersea car boot sale. Me, my pregnant belly, we would just sold most things that I had basically, and used that money to buy the car, paint the walls, and actually lived more minimally and created this like haven that became really cozy. And instead of thinking, oh, I'm somewhere small, I thought I'm somewhere so cozy, and isn't this sweet? And it was we just made the most of what we had, and it became the first home for my son. So that meant so much that it didn't really matter in the end. And we made it nice. It was so cute. I have such fond memories of it.
Well, I think that's super inspirational. I think that's amazing. I think that a lot of people will to learn a lot from that, on taking a little bit and not having much and making something out of it. And it shows what the change, a shift in the mindset can do. Yeah. So then now we're moving from here. We've got to this stage where the baby's born. We're in this apartment, and we've made do of what Roxie's like sort of put these pieces together, and she's, from what I can see, quite content at this stage. Yeah. True? I was content, but I was really on a mission. Okay, I like that. I really wanted to make my life incredible and make a success of myself and spread my message and be of service to others. Yeah. I felt that I had defined my purpose at this point, and my purpose was to use my pain to help inspire others and help them see the light within them. And so the first thing I did was set up a workshop. I was inspired by people like Brené Brown, Tony Robbins. I loved listening to speakers and how they could energize a room and motivate a room and change lives. So I thought, well, that's what I want to do. So I set up a workshop. I rented like an old church. It was like 200 quid. Yeah. And I just put it on my Instagram, and I had a small following at the time, and I'd been giving people advice every Sunday called Agni Aunt Sundays on like a question thing. So I'd already started kind of sharing my own advice, and I was very vulnerable in my own journey as well. This is year 2020, 2019. 2019, yeah. Right now. Okay. So in November 2019, I set a date on my mum's birthday, and I said that I was going to host a self-love workshop and to see who wanted to come. Yeah. And 100 people signed up. Which, from your Instagram ad. Which I was like, oh my God. But I think because I'd been so honest in my own journey, and it's something that I always say to people who are in the self-development space, like vulnerability is the way that you connect to people. I wasn't claiming to be the finished article. I was just sharing what I knew. And I did this workshop, and within 10 minutes of being on stage, I felt, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. And then it kind of all began from there. That's, it's just like what I can learn from that, and what I'm hearing from that is that it's just so important to take that first step. Yeah. Most people just don't take that first step. They might have an idea, they might want to share a message, but they just they don't feel like they have the right. Yeah. They don't feel like they're good enough to actually go out and do that. 100%. That's something you're sat there, you've not done this before, it's the first time you're saying, right, I'm going to hire a venue, I'm going to invite all these people and hope somebody turns up. Yeah. Did you think, well, what if no one turns up? Did you think, well, what am I going to say when I get on stage? 100%. I had no idea what I was even going to talk about when I booked it. But I was following my own advice, which is step 3, align your behavior. I had a goal, and part of that is stepping outside your comfort zone and taking risks to achieve it.
And so I just thought, fuck it, let's try and see what happens. And, you know, I look back now and I could like cringe when I think about it. But I'm like, no, like actually that, you know, I do kind of, but then I'm like, you know what? Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Like everyone has to start somewhere, and you're not going to be good your first time. Like, I'm sure when you first did a podcast interview, you might have felt like, oh, am I ready for this? Like, we're always giving ourselves new challenges. I mean, I'm constantly doing things all the time that I don't feel comfortable doing and that I feel like I'm not ready for. But you just keep practicing, keep going, and eventually you keep improving.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's where growth is. Growth, if you're not challenging yourself and putting yourself outside of your comfort zone,
Exactly.
then how are you going to grow? You know, that's where the growth, every time you do something that you feel challenged, that's where the growth is.
Yeah.
So now we've done this first one, we've done this first event, 100 people have come. You probably walked out of that thinking, bomb, I am the shit, I have made it happen. Next thing is we're going on, did the book journey start then?
No. So then I decided to do a second workshop, and I said to my audience, I've been doing this thing called manifestation.
Yeah.
Do you want to learn about it?
So what was the first workshop?
Self-love.
Okay, just loving yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the second one, I said, shall I do this thing of manifesting? They said yes. And I thought, okay, well, I've learned so much about this practice. How am I going to teach it? And I thought, I'm going to put it into steps. And then there with my 7 steps to manifesting was born. I remember being on a walk and I wrote them down within about 5 minutes. They just sort of came to me, I suppose. And I hosted the manifest workshop, really not knowing how it would go. I didn't know if it would make sense to people, really, because I'd only done it myself. And the feedback was phenomenal. And then the pandemic hit. So what happened in March 2020 was I started doing online webinars. And I was doing the manifesting 7 steps, self-love, body and mind, which was about habits, relationships. And like every month I was doing a webinar, and I was just building a very organic community by word of mouth. There would be 150 people in the beginning, and by the end it was 1,000 people, you know, by 9 months later. And then I decided, I'm going to make this into a book. So I wrote the book in 2021 in about 8 weeks. And then it was released in 2022, and 48 hours after it was released, there was not a copy available in the country.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal story and journey. So when it comes to the book then, what do you think? I mean, I've read the book, seen the book, design's beautiful, right? Funnily enough, I was in Miami in December for Art Basel. And I was staying at the one hotel on South Beach. I was upstairs they've got a rooftop swimming pool where they've got a beautiful restaurant and lounge and bar, etc. And I saw 2 people walk around with the orange book.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that.
And I think I took a picture. No, I didn't. I stopped the lady and I said, is that the Manifest book? I could see it was. And she's like, yeah. I was like, I just read that. What a phenomenal book.
Oh.
How random is that though?
I love that.
That's when I was like, shit, this book is making an impact. It's not just me who's discovered this, you know? This is like, you know, I'm in Miami, other side of the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've got people walking around with the orange book. So point being that what reminded me of that was the marketing, because that book, the look of it is just, you know, it stand out. It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
What were the key ingredients though for you that made it? I mean, there is millions of books that are released.
Yeah.
And it's one of those industries where I think, you know, from what I've heard is that, you know, I have tens of thousands.
Definitely.
Maybe one makes money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the rest are just, you know, that's it. They were just written and nothing happens. What was the magic there?
I think there are loads of ingredients that made it do so well. I think one is the aesthetic of it, the color, and that was very intentional by me. There was the title, again, was my choice. I wanted something that was so straightforward, you know, exactly what the book was about. I think obviously a book can look good and it can have a good title, but if the content's not good, it's not going to go anywhere. And I think what this book is it's extremely accessible. It's easy to read. It's not even that long, so you don't feel dissatisfied because you haven't finished a book. It's not dense. It's not trying to be too clever. And I think for that, it reaches more like a mass market because people aren't intimidated by it. I think my writing style, actually what I judged myself on before it came out, I thought this book is too simple. It's not interesting enough. But actually that was its appeal. Is that it was simple and it was easy to read. And then, you know, it came at a right time where we'd just come out of the pandemic and people wanted a feeling of hope. And that's what this book gives you.
I mean, I know people, my wife, for example, she reads the book and she refers back to it on day to day. You know, if she's having a stressful day, she's like, oh, let me go back to chapter 4 and read that page. So it's so to the point and simple, and I wouldn't say simple, so powerful that people can refer back to a page and say, let me remind myself. I think that's the biggest compliment, that people are using it like a guide, like a Bible, oh shit, I'm feeling this today, let me go back to page this. And
no, it's amazing. And honestly, it's very, I'm very lucky that I have a job where I get to see people feeling better directly as a result. It's very motivating. It's
magical. It is that making that impact. Now tell me, what was the moment when you're like, shit, I've arrived, I've made it, I'm big.
Oh my God, I don't know. I know. Like, yeah, tell me.
When you met Jay Shetty and he had read your book or he knew who you were, no?
It's so funny. In 2022, I put Jay Shetty on my vision board.
Yeah.
4 days later, he started following me on Instagram and I was like, oh my God. And then I messaged him being like, I'd love to come talk about manifesting. I didn't get a reply. And that for me was very much like step 4. And I was like, okay, I'm going to wait. And then months later in June, he replied and then said, do you want to come to LA and record? So it was amazing. And then I went and recorded his podcast in LA.
Oh, you went on his podcast?
Yes. Yeah. Which was amazing. And so honored that he gave me that platform. And now we've become really good friends. He is one of the nicest people I've ever met.
He's a phenomenal guy. I follow him. He's amazing.
He's exactly what you would expect. It's completely authentic. He's so genuine. So yeah, that was amazing.
So was that the moment? Was that one of the moments?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm still having those moments. Every day I have that moment. I'm like, shit, this is so cool. I just did a show at Alexandra Palace to 1,000 people and you stand on stage and you're like, what the fuck? I don't know why people want to listen to me speak, but it's a privilege. Everything, however big or small, really is an amazing thing. And I do feel, I'm very much an advocate of self-celebration, of being able to be proud of how far you've come. I'm definitely not someone that is constantly like, now what's next? I'm actually like, this is really good as it is, and anything that comes after this is a bonus.
I love that. So it's like, this is, I've been on a big self-discovery journey myself, especially since the pandemic. What happened with me was that 2010, I was dead broke, had nothing. Over the next decade, from 2010 to 2020, I grew the businesses phenomenally, and all like, from lifestyle, cars, houses, the properties, travel, you name it, all those things. I achieved them all. But I realized when COVID hit that life slowed down and I had time to reflect. And I was like, I'm actually more miserable now with everything than when I had nothing.
Yeah.
And had somebody told me going back to 2010 that in the next 10 years, this is the things you're going to have. You're getting married, you're going to have kids, you're going to be living in this level of in 2010, I was renting a place for £350 a month.
Oh my God.
Yeah. In 2020, I was living in a £8 million apartment.
Wow.
I had 2 Lamborghinis, 2 Rolls Royces.
God, that's incredible.
Mercedes, blah blah, and I'd done things that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was restaurants you can go to and spend £5,000 on dinner. Right. So but I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel anything about it. If someone told me 2010 I'm going to achieve all that, I would have thought, how is that even possible? Am I going to win the lottery? Like, how can I achieve all that in the next 10 years? It's impossible. So that's when I sort of went on my own journey of sort of like, okay. And what I realized was that happiness is a separate thing and success is a separate thing.
Definitely.
You think that I'll become successful and I'll be happy, but it's not. Yeah. They're two completely disconnected things, right? You've got to work on being happy the same way you work on being successful.
100%. Yeah. And I always say, unless you start to heal your wounds, it doesn't matter how successful you are, you will never enjoy it. But if you do heal, if you do find self-worth and self-love and you feel valuable as you are and enough as you are, then you actually can enjoy the success. You can enjoy the abundance and feel proud of it. And, sink into it. But it is an essential ingredient.
So we talk about wounds. I think this is, I'm not sure which chapter is in the book, you can tell me, but it's one where you have to overcome your limiting beliefs. And I think limiting beliefs, they come from past experiences. A lot of them related to childhood. It's what people said to you, parents said to you, teachers said to you. How does somebody find those and sort of untune them?
Oh, I mean, it's a process, but it starts with self-awareness. It starts with trying to understand simple things like, what are the patterns of relationships in my life? What are the things that I think about myself? Where do I feel most unworthy? Where do I feel most insecure? What experiences from my childhood could have started that? If I feel, that I'm not good in social situations, can I think back to my childhood? When did I first start to feel like I wasn't good in social situations? Or if I have a pattern of relationships where every time I get close to someone, I seem to sabotage it and mess it up and push them away. When did that begin? Why do I do that? When security is driving that? It's just this starting to get to know yourself. And then using the help of therapists and other healers, inner child healers, hypnotherapists to help you undo that. I do think it's just such an important part of this process.
No, it definitely is. You've got to dig deep. You've got to go in there and you got to find those things and then almost talk yourself out of what you used to believe.
Yeah.
Use your current understanding of the world to translate that back to that old you.
Yeah.
And dig it out. I love that. That's really, really good. Roxie, thank you so much for that. I think the audience is going to be delighted that they've, gotten more in-depth understanding of who Roxie is, what you're all about. I am super inspired by you. I'm super inspired by what you've achieved, especially where you've come from, the journey you've been through. And I hope that people, especially, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of female listeners to this. My audience is all guys, want to be like me. So I'm glad that we were able to bring you on here. And so a lot of the female audience will be able to relate to you, understand that when you're in a situation, when you're in a place in life, you can come out of it. And not just come out of it, but come out on a different level.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.